The sterile scent of antiseptic hung heavy in the air, mingling with the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Room 312 of St. Augustine's Hospital was a quiet sanctuary amidst the chaos of life, its pale blue walls a canvas for fleeting hopes and whispered prayers. In that room, where time seemed to pause, two souls collided in a way that would rewrite their stars forever. Elliot Grayson was no stranger to hospitals. At 32, he'd spent more days in them than most do in a lifetime. Born with a rare heart condition, he'd grown accustomed to the rhythm of beeping monitors and the gentle reassurances of nurses. But Elliot was no ordinary patient. He was a beacon of light, his warm hazel eyes and easy smile disarming even the gruffest of doctors. He'd charm the cafeteria staff into sneaking him extra pudding, sketch silly cartoons for the kids in the pediatric wing, and listen to the elderly patients' stories with a patience that made them feel seen. To everyone who met him, Elliot was a hero, not because he fought battles, but because he carried hope like a torch, even when his own flickered. That autumn, though, his light was dimming. A new complication had landed him in room 312, tethered to an 4-drip and a heart monitor that chirped like a restless bird. The doctors spoke in hushed tones about transplant lists and dwindling time, but Elliot refused to let their words sink him. He'd faced death before and come out laughing. This time, he told himself, would be no different. Enter Lila Harper. She wasn't supposed to be in room 312. A volunteer at St. Augustine's, Lila was a whirlwind of energy, her auburn hair always slipping from its messy bun as she darted between tasks. At 28, she'd taken a gap year from her music career to give back, delivering books and smiles to patients. That day, a mix-up in the volunteer schedule sent her to the 3rd floor instead of pediatrics. Clutching a stack of worn novels, she knocked on Elliot's door, her heart skipping when she saw him. He was sitting up in bed, sketching on a notepad, his dark hair falling into his eyes. The sunlight streaming through the window painted him in gold, and for a moment, Lila forgot why she was there. "Hi," she stammered. "I'm Lila. I brought you some books. Thought you might be bored." Elliot looked up, his smile slow and warm, like dawn breaking. "Bored? Never. But I'll take a book if it comes with a conversation." His voice was soft, teasing, but there was a weight behind it, a quiet strength that pulled her in. What began as a 5-minute chat stretched into hours. Lila returned the next day, and the day after that, each visit blurring the line between volunteer and friend. They talked about everything, her dreams of composing a symphony, his love for stargazing, the way he'd always wanted to see the northern lights. Elliot's stories were vivid, painted with humor and heart, but Lila noticed the way his hands trembled when he spoke of the future, the way his laughter sometimes caught in his throat. One evening, as rain tapped against the window, Lila found herself confessing something she'd never told anyone. "I'm terrified of failing," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. "What if my music never reaches anyone? What if I'm just nothing?" Elliot reached for her hand, his touch warm despite the chill of the room. "Lila, you're already someone's symphony. You're mine." His words hung in the air, raw and unguarded, and for the first time, Lila saw the depth of his feelings mirrored in his eyes. She didn't pull away. Their connection deepened, a fragile thread weaving through the sterile days. They played chess with mismatched pieces, laughed over bad hospital coffee, and shared secrets under the glow of a bedside lamp. But the shadow of Elliot's condition loomed larger with each passing week. His episodes grew frequent, his breaths shallower. Lila began sneaking in after volunteer hours, curling up in the chair beside his bed, her presence a quiet rebellion against the ticking clock. One night, as the hospital slept, Elliot handed her a folded piece of paper. "Don't open it yet," he said, his voice hoarse but firm. "It's for when I'm not here." Lila's heart clenched. "Don't say that. You're not going anywhere." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just promise me you'll read it." She nodded, tucking the paper into her pocket, her fingers brushing against the weight of her fear. She wanted to tell him she loved him, that she'd fallen for the man who made hospital rooms feel like home, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she leaned forward and kissed him, soft and tentative, a promise of her own. The next morning, everything changed. Lila arrived to find room 312 buzzing with activity. Doctors and nurses moved in a flurry, their faces grim. Elliot's heart had faltered in the night, and he'd been rushed to the ICU. The transplant list, they said, was their only hope, but the odds were slim. Lila sank into the chair by his empty bed, clutching the folded paper he'd given her. She didn't open it. Not yet. Days blurred into nights. Lila haunted the hospital, her music forgotten, her world shrinking to the beep of Elliot's monitors and the hope of a miracle. She prayed, though she'd never been religious, bargaining with the universe for one more day, one more smile. And then, against all odds, a heart became available. The surgery was a marathon, 12 hours of agonizing waiting. Lila sat in the hospital chapel, the folded paper still unopened in her pocket, her fingers tracing its edges like a talisman. When the surgeon emerged, exhaustion etched into his face, he delivered the news. Elliot had made it through. The heart was beating strong. Relief flooded Lila, but it was short-lived. Elliot remained in a coma, his body fighting to accept the new heart. Days turned to weeks, and Lila refused to leave his side. She read to him from the books she'd brought that first day, played her guitar softly in the ICU, and whispered stories of the life they'd share when he woke. "We'll see the northern lights," she promised, her voice breaking. "You and me, Elliot. Just hold on." One evening, as snow dusted the city outside, Lila finally unfolded the paper. Her hands trembled as she read Elliot's words, written in his careful, slanting script. "Lila, you're the melody I didn't know I needed. If I don't make it, don't let my story end yours. Live big, love hard, and write that symphony. You're my heart now, always. Elliot." Tears streamed down her face, but they weren't just grief. They were fire, resolve, a vow to honor him. She clutched the letter to her chest and whispered, "You're not done yet, Elliot Grayson. Not on my watch." Weeks later, a miracle stirred. Elliot's fingers twitched, then his eyes fluttered open, finding Lila's tear-streaked face. "Hey," he rasped, his voice a ghost of itself. "Told you I'd stick around." Lila laughed through her sobs, gripping his hand as if she could anchor him to the world. His recovery was slow, a dance of setbacks and triumphs, but Lila was there for every step. She brought him sketches of the stars, played him the first notes of a symphony she'd begun writing, for him, for them. And when he was strong enough, they made plans to chase the northern lights, a dream no longer out of reach. But the story didn't end there. A year later, under a sky ablaze with green and violet, Elliot and Lila stood hand in hand in Iceland, the aurora borealis painting their future. Elliot, now healthy, his new heart steady, turned to her. "You saved me, Lila," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just in the hospital. Every day since." She smiled, her eyes reflecting the dancing lights. "We saved each other." And as they kissed beneath the endless sky, the world felt infinite, their love a melody that would never fade. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey with Elliot and Lila. If their story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Endless Love Story for more cinematic tales of love and hope. Watch until the very end. Every second is magical and worth it. Let's keep the love alive together.